There is a great community of there to find people. Since you're studying, Great Britain, those who chose Great Britain.
Boleh ni mana?
Well, maybe if you have when I went to Great Britain, I had the Italian passport.
No, you can enter Great Britain today. You don't need a visa. No, you need a visa for USA.
But yes, but it was easier because you weren't part of the European Union. Today, Great Britain is not part of the European Union.
Sí, amiga,
So I could work
sí, pero
legally, you
agrego,
could do many things with it. I could have access to the healthcare system.
Hicieron carrito.
Now, no.
Yo digo, está fantástico un poco.
Digamos, tengo un amigo igual que suele comprar por Amazon porque está haciendo
No, hasta 100 no, mira, a partir de 100. ¿Sabes qué, amiga? ¿Sabes dónde quería comprar? Desde Amazon, pero desde tienda mía. Porque viste que está plata en PayPal. En tienda mía, pero está PayPal en Amazon, ¿no? Lo que pasa es que en tienda mía para el delivery sale $6 y en tienda X sale 8 o 9. Tiene que sacar plata de algún lado. Y ¿sabes qué? Viste que te había dicho que quería comprar en Nintendo. No se puede comprar. Como que no la iban a dar para el sí, no, pero te pasan una compu. Una tablet, un celular, un iPhone te puedes comprar. Sí. De hecho, tipo, cuando lo pongo me dice que la Unión Argentina no permite este producto.
lo promueven.
And also, when in the case of the USA, depends on the situation. Okay, very good.
Como no tengo,
Now, yes,
como sabes, está en PayPal.
let's see what the source is about. This source reads contemporary approaches to
La
racism,
aplicación
center on explaining the
Prex con X.
of racial inequality and racial discrimination in an era of declining overtly racist attitude. So in this era of declining overtly racist attitude, yes, we still see well-documented persistence of racial inequality. And it continues. Without explicit ideologies of racial domination in direct cause, how can we explain persistent racial inequality in criminal sentencing, health and wealth, persistent rejection of policies meant to alleviate racial inequality, and persistent racial discrimination in hiring, credit markets, and housing? What is the source about it? Yeah. First, let's define regionalism, and then we focus on Canada. So, the questions I'm going to show you, everybody can participate. They are true or false questions. The first, well, these are the now, regional diversity means regions in a country different from each other on account of cultural traits and or economic activities. True or false?
No sé qué dice.
So, I don't know, well, maybe that's
Se ríe la botella y la caga.
So, it's true, yes? Regional diversity means that regions in a country differ from each other on account of differences. For example, cultural traits, economic activities, the natural environment, land use patterns, okay? So example, in Canada, which are the regions in Canada? Okay. Tell me one region in Canada. Quebec is a region.
Another one that was very with
Another region. Okay. You have
Nunavut.
the Nunavut is part of the Northern Territory. So the Northern Territories, they would have included Quebec, Ontario, Ontario. Then you have the Atlantic provinces. That is another region you will find the Rhode Island. Then you have the prairie with Saskatchewan, Alberta, Manitoba, and then you have the west coast. As you know that Quebec is one. Yes, you know that. It's one. And very good. And actually, Quebec, these different regions present their own geography. Yes, their own cultural. So the geography in Quebec is different from the geography in Colombia. And the history, for example, the history of colonization in Quebec is different from the history of colonization in Colombia. Okay? So, there is regional diversity. Let's see the next one. Regional diversity might raise regional consciousness. And this is the case of Quebec. Okay? So it's true, yeah, because when people begin this regional diversity might lead people to identify with a particular area or region. That identification with that region leads to the development of this regional consciousness. Okay? This is something that happens here, also in Argentina. You are from Córdoba, from the new colonies, or you're from provinces, or you're from Patagonia, or you're from the NOAA, or from the NEA. So there is regional diversity and there is regional consciousness. Yes, and in the case of Canada, people from Quebec identify with Quebec, not their area. Okay? Well, we take it, don't worry. We're very general to this regional consciousness. Don't worry. Let's see the following. Regional consciousness, that is the identification with a particular region, might acquire political expression.
Attention. Huh? Political que. Ah.
Let's see here. Very good. True. Yes, because it's regional consciousness. Might, not that always acquire. Might acquire political expression. Was this true back? Yes. What example? The very good. And the next one, regionalism might lead. Regionalism might lead to regional competition and in some cases separatism. And this is the case of Quebec. Again, very good. Regionalism might lead. This is very important. Remember that regionalism primarily focuses on the main aim, yes, when you develop this regional consciousness, is to try to advance your interests within the state. yes, but sometimes when that regionalism is taken to an extreme, it can lead to separation. Yes, this desire to separate and form a different state. And this is what happened in Quebec, yes, that we saw especially during the second half of the 90s and the 20th century, when they fought, yes, for their independence of sovereignty. Okay? Very good. So now, with this panorama in mind, let's go into Quebec now.
Me encantan los quizzes.
You have a source, you have to write short answer. What is the opinion in the source? And if you see, this is a vintage original, circa 1980s, okay, that's one year to help you. Poster issued by Le Mouvement National de Québécois, and this poster was issued by or those supporting the movement for Quebec to leave Canada and become an independent. The slogan translates to take your country.
No vimos policiales, no vamos.
What is the opinion?
Vimos policial. Vimos policial. ¿Qué era? ¿Qué vino? ¿Es el señor que se cayó, no? O sea, yo me acuerdo que lo vimos, no, ¿qué caso? Vamos, si lo dijiste en la traducción. ¿Te vas a un resumen? Ah, sí tengo un resumen, te lo paso. A ver, mira. Un resumen muy a lo mío. Sí, sí. Que lo usé para los para literaria y para periodística porque los textos, o sea, como los textos son solo de periodística, de literaria los pasé. Pero se usan bases de misma. Eso se dice para el periodismo.
Yo le digo a la teoría que me por el correo.
Sí, no.
Teoría que al final lo más.
Igual que también pueden agarrar pusieron mal, identificamos mal, se puso todo mal.
Nibio.
No, en cambio en el otro final, una bolivara que le gustaron y no, y tipo era la diferencia entre esto y esto, o sea, sí o sí le ibas a tener bien. A mí no respondiste nada.
So you wrote first
In favor of
propaganda
separatism.
in favor of Quebec separation. In favor of separatism.
¿Qué opinas?
Qué bien que pinta.
For their autonomy, in favor of separatism, for separatism, Quebec should be independent, support separatism in favor of sovereignty. Okay? Very good. Now, what happened in 1980 in Quebec? That reform. First referendum. Okay. The first referendum on Quebec's sovereignty was held where? In? Yes, inside Quebec. Now, who held that referendum? What political party? The Parti Québécois. Now, when did the Parti Québécois as a party emerge? In the 60s. Now, what do you remember about the 60s? The 60s is the period of what development? The Fire Revolution. Yes, you have to bear in mind that in Quebec, after a long period of conservatism, let's see, when the premier died, yes, and the liberals won, yes, and when the liberals won with Lesage, they began to introduce changes, yes, into Quebec. These changes were related to the quiet revolutions. They started to modernize Quebec. It was a period of secularization of Quebec after this strong period of very strong conservatism and power of the church. The power of the church declined, deteriorated, yes. So great social, political, economic changes took place in Quebec as a consequence of this liberal government and the
Questa è la periferia, no?
And also, it is during this period that we see the development of the truly francophone of French Canadian nationalism. Because of all these developments, people began to have this really desire to promote Quebec's causes. Yeah. Remember that in the 60s is the period of the Official Languages Act, for example, in 2011, federal level. Okay, so showing you how, for the first time, the Quebecois were beginning to fight to achieve, yes, more right. They were fighting for the preservation of their identity as a nation from their own perspective. Eventually, the rise of this political movement that is related to the sovereignty movement in Quebec, this led to the emergence of the Parti Québécois. Yes, and the Parti Québécois was this party at provincial level, yes, that would fight for Quebec's sovereignty and independence. This party emerged in the late 60s, yes, and during the 70s they began to participate in different elections. First they had some seats in the assembly, then they became the opposition, and eventually they came to power with the promise of holding a referendum on sovereignty. Yes, so they won the election, and now they get this referendum. And this poster that we saw actually is related to this, what you say, yes? This is propaganda in support for sovereignty or Quebec independence. There were other groups who didn't support that, yes, like Trudeau, Pierre Trudeau, who was the prime minister who implemented the policy of nationalism in the 70s. He was against federalism. He promoted against. But then when you have people who were for, yes, eventually what happened in this referendum? It failed, or people rejected, in a way, separatism. Yes, 60% said yes. Very good. Let's do the following one.
I understand was that result from people from Quebec.
It's only because it was called by the party, held by the Parti Québécois. The Parti Québécois is province. Provincial level. So people from Quebec. How far did Quebecers promote Quebec's autonomy in the 1890s? And most of you said to a great extent. Why? What arguments can you give me?
That was the period at which most of the events were held, such as the Midway Accord, the Charlottetown Agreement, the referendum, for example.
Okay, this is the period in the 80s and 90s where the three referenda were held. Yes, the first one, the 1980, the one we just mentioned. That was the first one.
1990.
1992, the second one. Yes. So the second one was at federal level. Everybody voted. Yes. And then the third one, 1995. Okay. And why would you say that Quebecers promoted their autonomy with this referendum? Here you need to analyze the results. What do you see when you analyze the results of the different referenda? No, because the first one and the third one were in Quebec, and they were rejected. But what can you see in the results? In the first one, the results were 60% no. In the second one, 54% no. In the third one, 51% no. More or less. So what do the results show you?
That they were abandoning. Yeah.
Okay, very good. That little by little, yes, the difference between the yes and the no, yes, was diminishing, yes, and some people said that if a new referendum was held, the result was going to be yes, because the last one was 50-54 and 49-56. I don't know, so it was there.
The only referendum,
No, it wasn't a big gap.
the only referendum that was held at federal level was the second one.
Yes, the second one. And the second one is related to Charlottetown. Accepting Charlottetown.
But the last referendum held was this year, right?
No,
In the class, in the representation, it said something about 2025, in May 2025.
elections.
Election. Okay.
No, the thing is that if the Parti Québécois, that I was mentioning that in the poll, they would, the Parti Québécois says that if they win, they might call for another. If they win. The thing is that you cannot hold referendums whenever you want. You need to hold it when you know that the result will be different from the previous. Okay? And actually it was quite a shock for the Parti Québécois that they rejected the third referendum. Yeah, basically. And eventually the popularity of the party or this movement for autonomy diminished. That's why we see liberal party. Okay? So if we analyze and you have that perspective that little by little the margin gets lower, so we could believe that following the next referendum, the situation will be different. Very good. In the 90s. What else? Any other argument? Okay, when? 1991. Yes. Okay, and also in the 80s. The 80s and the 90s is the period of power of the Parti Québécois also in Quebec. Yes. The Parti Québécois, then some liberals, and the Parti Québécois again. Power. So the fact that they
The
vote
Parti
for
Québécois.
shows that Quebecers want to
Party.
is in that period. Okay? Very good. And as a concession, although to say why didn't they fight? Okay, because the referendum failed. So it shows you that actually they did not support it. Oh, so it depends on how you read the referendum. Because those who oppose separatism say, well, 3 times. No.
Se lo veo hoy, me pone que estaba en el cumpleaños de mi amiga.
Así.
To what extent
¿De quién?
Quebecers fight for
Del uno.
sovereignty and result in
Sí,
political
me acuerdo.
representation? Well, this is something we
Este lo decir lo que pensaba. Pensaba muy bueno. Tengo el cumpleaños de ella a las 7 y después a las 9 tengo los 40 de mi tía.
Todo allá.
Un montón de cosas.
Está ocupado, no sé, tiene que llamar. Bueno.
Okay, to a great extent. Why? What examples can you give me of that political representation?
The emergence again of the Parti Québécois, the Bloc
Very
Québécois.
good, the Parti Québécois, the Bloc Québécois. And as a consequence, you say, well, now, this nationalism is not related. Even though they have the political party, okay, could be. The thing is that Quebec, if everybody in Quebec votes for the Parti Québécois, I don't think they will be able to get to the federal level either, because
No, but
yeah,
even in provincial level, they don't hold majority.
today, but they can. The thing is that federal level says it's very difficult for them to do that. Okay, but also another argument, because yes, the political parties are important, yes, but they don't emerge in vacuum. Yes. And in fact, during this time,
Dinero primero.
truly Quebecois nationalism, and eventually that nationalism found political representation in the political party. Yes, very good. We need to analyze the
¿Qué es un
context.
marcador,
That
amigo?
context contributed to the emergence of this political party. If there hadn't been this Quebecois nationalism, why would the separatist political party emerge? Okay? And some people say, well, actually, Francophone nationalism is as old as. Do you remember the French and Indian War? Which was the French and Indian War? Or the Seven Years' War. This is when the area that today is Quebec used to be a French colony and then became part of the British the state. But from that moment on, French nationalist feeling developed in the area. But the truly Francophone nationalism is this desire for sovereignty is related to the white representations. Yeah. And that contributed to the formation of the political system. Okay? Let's do the following. What is the opinion in the cartoon? Look at the year, it's 2014. You have Canada. Canada says, I will. So this is Quebec, okay? It's a talk. And Canada, the rest of Canada, all will rate really young. Esta está tapada, pero esta.
Pero no ande bien porque es como que se hunde Sí, acá lo paso con el botón.
Ay, ella Taylor, Dios mío. Que te casa, ¿viste, amigo?
Obvio, amigo, pues.
No le puedes responder.
Siempre llega un Travis. Siempre llega un Travis. Paciencia, paciencia. Hasta aquí. Paciencia. No sé, no sé en qué.
That the issue of... No, the opinion of the cartoon. That the issue of... Sobre... esta palabra me cuesta, che.
A mí también me recuerda escribir
Is a recurrent issue.
¿Te estoy tirando unos factos?
Ay, bueno, no la contesté.
Against, well, you write against separatism, Who is against separatism? Because you have Quebec, Canada.
Mira, mira.
And if you see in the
¿Qué estás comiendo?
cartoon,
¿Yogur de qué?
Bastante dulce para mi gusto.
but also because blue is related to France, the color of blue is so making reference to the French identity of the Franco-Canadians actually,
And the flag also.
and red, yes, the flag, and red usually is the color used in maps to represent the British Empire or English-speaking people. So
Ay, parece
this
naranja.
refers to Anglo-Canadians, if you wish, and these Franco-Canadians, apart from Quebec, and at that time, 2014, the woman was the premier. Yes, so it could also be related to that. Because of the premier, then you can look for pictures. Yes, she was blonde, yes, maybe it's maybe that. Okay. Now, why do you think Quebec says?
Esperando que me reconocí de juego.
Okay, because actually at that time,
Está bien, ella viene,
who
claro.
do you think was government? If you don't know, who do you think was government?
Ah, bien. ¿Qué hace? ¿Para qué venía?
Well, there, and the premier was for separation.
Un vicio.
¿Lo jugás?
And what about the
No, digo, ella un vicio tiene.
Ah, sí.
Here we go.
Un cuento de damas. Todo el día,
No está con el Clash Royale. No está con el Clash Royale. Porque ahora uno que me salió en TikTok que parece que lo está jugando mucho. En el que las novias le ponen el sonido y todo eso. Ay, qué tierno.
There were several attempts to achieve sovereignty, but the referendum failed. crisis over 18. Well, it could be because of how Quebec is represented. Yes. Let's see the following. And this one, what is the opinion?
Ella para poner, manifestar, que vuelvan.
Québécois speaking, and look at the people. And this is 2015.
¿Qué? Ay, amiga. No, habré tenido la misma mala suerte.
So, first, let's look at the question. What can you see here? So, let's describe what you see. Okay. Okay.
Busca libre. No es compraste.
No.
Okay. So,
Mira, igual hay cosas que están.
the particular, in this case, yes, the French identity, but in
Antes
this
de
context,
tipo, todos los libros Harry Potter, tapadura, 60.000 pesos. Que me pareció re bien. Pero porque era importado, creo. Después. Y siempre que veo, tiene libros que.
so it's voicing the desire.
Tipo, los de Magali Tagle siempre salen en
And what
oferta.
happens?
Y en combo.
Okay, very good. Bigger than the support, because what are people doing? We are living. And look, if you see, and this is something we just said with Consuelo, look, this is an old lady with the dog listening. Yes, maybe age at the time was most important. And the workers and the rest of the people are, yes, living. And let's see your response. You say, it's against Québécois for the, okay, the Québécois are portrayed as annoying. The Québécois or the Parti Québécois portrayed as annoying, or these ideas of independence as annoying. The Parti Québécois has lost much of its vote, and French nationalism has diminished. Okay, could be related to that. Critique to the Parti Québécois, people ignore them. Yes. Failure of the referendum, no, because this is 2015 and the last referendum was 1985. Okay? Quebec voicing their demands to the people, but how do the people react? And that is important to see. What are the people doing? Are they paying attention and celebrating? No. Or no. So that is important when analyzing the source. Okay? And the argument. So it's not the failure of the referendum. It's not making reference to the referendum in this case. But the lack of support. And actually in 2015, the Parti Québécois, well, 2014, the Parti Québécois lost elections. Yes, I'm sure you know what happened from elections again. Yes, so people maybe were abandoning different yeah, could be related to that. How people are not interested in independence. Yeah, that would be very good. And in relation to this analysis, the question is, how far has the rest of Canada supported
Pues bueno, to some extent. Si me dijeron siempre que no digas to some extent. No se puede. Siempre dijeron que no, ahora me lo ponen. ¿Qué se quiere? support
Okay, come from the rest of Canada,
Ted.
say, to a small, all of you say, to a small extent. Why? What examples can you give me showing that Canada has not supported them? Okay. Yes, not the three, but the second. So the first and the second, the third one were the, yes. So if you're in an exam, you need to give examples about Canada, focus on the second. Okay, very good. An example, they rejected, yes, their demands and the
And maybe for counter argument could be the acts that were passed in order to
could be though, that would be more related to multiculturalism. And not acknowledging them as a distinct society with more power and autonomy. Because that is the idea of separatism or sovereignty has more power for Quebec, more autonomy for Quebec. Yes, so have the people all over Canada supporting that demand, those demands for more power and more autonomy. Okay, just one step. Because in the referendum, imagine some people voting yes, also in the rest of Canada. Okay? And also, if you take into account the agreements, Beach Lake and Charlottetown, even though they failed, in the first one, the federal government, because remember that the first one was not taken to a referendum, but the government had to ratify the agreement or not. So the federal level, at the federal level, the federal government agreed, yes, to that accord, and most of the provinces had agreed to Beach Lake, but Manitoba and Newfoundland. So most of the provinces, you see, in government, had supported that. And then in the case of Charlottetown, all the provinces had agreed, the governments had agreed, and the federal government as well. The thing is that they had to take it to a referendum, and people rejected it. But at least the government, yes, tried to solve the issue with this agreement. Okay, there were attempts, then they were rejected, but there were attempts.
It could be said that they were not directly related, the questions on that referendum to sovereignty, but to the acceptance of the accords.
Yes, but the thing is that the accord, Charlottetown, one of the clauses is related to giving more power to the provinces.
But not directly to sovereignty like the other referendums.
No, but remember that they fight for autonomy and sometimes for independence. More autonomy. Sometimes they want more power, more autonomy, sometimes they even want independence. In this case, the agreement, the purpose was to try to give a solution to this issue, but within the federal framework, without reaching the separation, if you will. But they also failed.
Charlottetown was rejected by the people,
Yes, because it's the one that was taken to referendum.
but the first one was rejected by
The government, by Manitoba, because it had to be ratified. It had to be ratified by all the provinces. And there were 2 provinces that didn't. But who proposed that? Yes, okay.
¿Serio?
¿Qué vas a hacer?
Voy a hacerlo hoy, esta noche. ¿Qué me voy a poner? Va a estar frío. ¿No? ¿Es afuera?
Dubai juegas de vuelta.
Somebody mentioned here. Also, to what extent has the rest
Pero seguramente tienen esa cosa que dan calor.
Sí, los hombres. No ponen acá por eso. Los chicos de afuera. Bueno, si tengo frío, voy a mi casa, estoy igual.
Y yo le dije a mis amigos que vengan en bola. No sé. No sé si lo van a conocer. Una es antisocial. Es muy mal interactuando. Pues seguramente no habla con ustedes.
Then you have the Libras, but then again,
Una amiga de teatro quizás.
in the 90s, a particular plot again, with Harrison promised also. And then,
Y la
when
Lu
well,
dijo
have
que
Libras,
va a
then
venir
this
más
is
tarde.
Marois is the one that I showed you the map. This is the period of Quebecois, but then from 2014 onwards, no further. So what
¿Qué es esto?
That's the show. That they lost
Si no sabes vos.
So if the Parti Québécois lost popularity, what caused?
Sale que saca screenshot. Le saca screenshot vos.
That's why if the Parti Québécois wins the elections next year, they say if we win, it means that people want. And maybe they are the thing is that the coalition of Quebec, they are not for separation. Yes, more autonomy, more powers for Quebec. That is what they try to achieve, but not separation. That's why they
Si no pregunté
didn't
si
vote
puede
for
cambiar el
referendum.
del coso.
That was not what they campaigned for. Yes, but up to now, look, if you only look at this and you don't know about the polls, about the next election, you say, well,
Si mami quizás pone la luz internet para contestar.
popularity is the cause of separation and independence. Popularity. Yes. Let's see. Now, look at this one.
Qué largo.
I will pause and then you write it your people. This is from 2025, the source, this year. And it reads, the 2018 election, it's this one, I show you. Look, 2018 is
No, se me fue, hija de puta.
okay? So, the 2018 election was widely seen as a proof that separatism was no longer a defining issue in Quebec politics, and pollsters speculated that the Parti Québécois days were numbered. Okay, so when Legault won, they say, well, this is proof that separatism, yeah, is not longer an issue in Quebec. And in fact, the Parti Québécois is doomed to exist. The days of the Parti Québécois are doomed. The province's new leader was a former sovereignist of the helm of a conservative-leaning nationalist party, promising not to hold a referendum, and Quebecers rewarded with a decisive majority. There are many Quebecers who put aside a debate that has divided us for 50 years. Legault said after his victory. Okay, so that was the situation, 2018. You say, well, separatism is losing, the Parti Québécois is losing support, yes, it will disappear. People do not want a separation, yes, not want independence. Now, today, on the 30th anniversary of Quebec's second independence referendum, when was Quebec's second independence referendum? 1995. So this year is 30 years. So now, in the eve of the 30th anniversary of Quebec's second independence referendum, the first one was in 1980, it seems that the tide could be turning again. Legault is deeply unpopular, so Legault, the one who is the premier today, is deeply unpopular after 60 years in power, and the Parti Québécois, with a young, charismatic leader, has been ahead in the polls for more than a year. Okay? So now I will give time to write what is the opinion in this course.
Faltan 2 diapositivas. A mí es nuevo eso. Ah, bueno. Yo te lo vi el otro día. Dije, oh, para cultura no lo vas a usar. Para cultura no lo puedes usar. Tengo un sueño y me desperté de temprano, 6:30. Que si yo no llego, me andan también. No, y pues me preguntó que todavía no quiero. Y me dice, y todo el día estuvo, hoy noticias todo acá, noticias todo acá.
No, todavía no terminó el programa.
No.
¿Querés que te cante más tarde?
No, no me molesta. De hecho, quiero que me compren una torta y que tipo de las que la gente sale de ahí. Tenemos una persona en pelotas.
Yo tengo un outfit, ¿no? Hay sorpresas.
Ay,
Lo vemos. Ay, no, mira, eso para vos, lo regalo. Para que cumple ya sabes.
a mí querer verme.
So you mentioned, supporting the idea that separatism may be
Yo siempre quiero que vaya para que vos lo beses.
results.
Sí, yo también.
There is
No,
no.
pero yo no lo quiero besar.
But this, yes, relevant again, might be relevant again. Yes, that's true. Or residual. The Parti québécois is gaining popularity
después.
again after the failure of Le Gaulle, dismissing separatism and explaining that the Parti québécois and separatism are losing support. Is that the Parti québécois and separatism are losing support? Is that what the source is about? No. Okay, Le Gaulle is losing support. It's saying, well, in 2018 they were very popular, but now it's this one. The Parti québécois is relevant again. The parties and failure relevant again. People are again supporting the Parti québécois and separatism. Against separatism and the division of Quebec from the rest of Canada. Also, it's not against Quebec. Remember that when you come forward, you have to see, because sometimes you have one idea, but then they say now, however. So those expressions might help you to understand which is the real opinion in the source. If we cut the source there, yes, that would be correct. But you need the rest of the source. Okay? Separatism was never abandoned, and today it is resurging again. It's gaining popularity again. The result in the next poll, if there is an next referendum, might, very good, be different in favor. Now, the polls are not in a referendum or separation. If there are elections, would be the result in the next poll. If there is an election, the result is that one will win, could be that. Even though the cause of sovereignty has lost popularity over the years, it is again gaining support. Okay? Very good. So, with these ideas in mind, yes,
Let's go. Let's have a
let's answer the last question. What extent is Quebec likely to become independent?
What is the name of the young leader?
Demi Lovato.
If it's not, you can upload it from the video. There are many pages where you have the list of the prime minister, the premiers, and the but you can have
Se la
it.
clase quiero estar abajo. Que se
You
deja.
can have the list of prime ministers, the party premiers. Okay, so what is that? Is Quebec likely to become political independent? Most of you said to a small extent. Why? What arguments can you give me? You can choose arguments from everything that we have said
I
today.
mean, from what we have seen so far, they have very few seats in government now, and we can, what we have, the previous poll was more
Me molesta que no habla la boca.
Yes. Okay. Very good.
Qué bronca.
Very good. So you are talking about the fact that today the Parti québécois is not in power. Yes, have very few seats in the Assembly. Yes, it's not even the second fourth in Quebec. And at the federal level, what about the Bloc québécois? Okay, even less power. Yes. So the political parties in power might show you that no, they are not going to become independent because the political parties
También
who
soy
support
prolija.
independence are not in power
Sí.
today. Very good.
Tipo listas de.
Very
También
good.
listas de prolija de por
Another
sí.
argument could be the result. Well, how do you analyze the
Y
result?
pensar que yo era una persona así.
¿En serio?
En secundaria. O sea, sí. Un poco
Okay,
tonto.
there were
Ahora soy terrible.
there were three referendum and the three said no. Okay, that's showing you that well, no. People don't want to do that. Well, and in the case of Quebec, there were two, and in both of them, well,
A la par de lo que me están diciendo. Me olvidé. Ese tipo estoy haciendo la mitad del video.
any other
Y
argument
dije,
here?
no sé qué dijo.
Concession. They are likely to become
The particular point regains popularity mostly among young people in Canada.
very good. The particular point regaining popularity. So if the particular point regaining popularity, we will imagine that the block is also popularity.
Yeah, when they're having elections next year.
Next year, in fact. So we need to wait. So if you see two final exam, next year, check.
Ah, si no está en el plan, amiga, no me rompa la pelota.
Very good. And another
Lo
argument.
que está ahora en noviembre, me la quito.
The other way around. If a fourth referendum was held, yes, maybe the result is different because the numbers are more.
Do you remember?
Okay? Very good. Okay. So any questions about regionalism in Canada?
No.
More or less clear? Yes. So for next class, we're going to work with regionalism. Okay?
Todo lado, ¿qué me importa a mí? Irlanda. En Argentina, papá. ¿Cuándo vamos? ¿Cuándo vamos a hablar de las coimas de Karina Mire?
The thing is that for the particular one, sovereignty means association, but that is different because sovereignty association means political independence, but so that was proposed such in the first conference, sovereignty, but in the second, that's why then it's such signed.
Sí, a ver, si no paramos de decirlo, así que la...
And we will see which mechanisms are. First, you have to understand the concepts, as you have seen with any of these regionalism, separatism, etc. But also, it may help you to make a timeline of events. And then, with that timeline of events, you address the topic and you address the to what extent questions. Okay? I mean, the timeline is just a description of events, okay? That then you will use to address the topic of regionalism, for example, or racism, for example, okay? In the case of regionalism in Canada,
Pensaré que entiendo. Y pues ahí
we
sentado
make a
escuchando la
timeline. First,
¿Vino?
let's go back to previous events. When did Canada become independent?
En 1900...
Remember?
En 1900. Ah. Oye, amigo, quiero sacar turno.
With the statute of Westminster in
Sí.
1931.
81 dice igual.
Before that, what important events we have in relation to Canada and British
¿Qué carajo está tu Westminster?
Later on, the British North America Acts, or also called constitutional.
Ese es 1967.
When? 1967. Why? The Confederation or the Federation, okay? And the Constitution, the first Constitution of the country, okay? Good. Then we have the Statute of Westminster, in which Canada became independent. Then
if we go to the 1960s, what do we have?
Namekikamos sila ko.
The Quiet Revolution. And why was the Quiet Revolution important? Yes, it led to the Party Quebecois. But what I mean is, what was important about the Quiet Revolution? There were many changes. Okay? Socially speaking, economically speaking, politically speaking, yes, it changed from a conservative Quebec towards a more modernized, secular Quebec in which this nationalism emerged. Okay? And we see very good, we see the emergence of the Parti Québécois. When? 1968. So in the context of the Quiet Revolution, or as we found, yes. Then what else? In this timeline, what can we mention? 1991. Ah, no, but 1991. Many things happened before 1991. 1980, the first referendum. Good, okay. Here we can also mention the Languages Act, the Reservoir Languages Act. In 1969, in 1974, okay. What was it? The Bill 101. And the other one, the Official Languages Act. This one promoted bilingualism. Remember, 2 official languages. And this one, French official language. Okay? And also, in the 70s, what policy started officially?
The policy of
Multiculturalism. Yes, very good. And then, in 1980, we see what? The first referendum.
I think we're missing one date, 1977.
Well, yes, also here, with the other part of the Languages Act. This first referendum was carried out where? In Quebec. And it was in relation to what? To sovereignty association. Very good. And people said? No. How many, which was the percentage? 60% said no. Okay? Good. And then, this first referendum was just after the Parti Québécois won the elections, and they won the elections at the provincial level, and at federal level, Trudeau's liberals lost the election, okay? And they were replaced by a conservative government that did not have a majority in parliament. So they said, well, this is the best context to carry out a referendum, because we are in power at provincial level, and at federal level, the liberals are not in power in government, okay? Good. But 60% said no. Then, okay, before the attempts, there was the Beachhead Accord and the Charlottetown Agreement. In 1982, we had what? That is related to this.
the Canadian Charter of Freedom.
Another Constitution Act. Okay? That invents a repatriation of this Constitution. What is a repatriation?
Compare para pasar de los fue septiembre, el 5 al 30 de septiembre. Después te va a base para te va a cobrar. Sí. Ahora en septiembre sí.
So it meant that it transferred the country's highest law, the Constitution, to Canada. Okay, because still this Constitution Act depending on written law. Okay, from the authority of the British Parliament to Canada's federal and provincial legislatures. Okay. But what happened with that Constitution Act?
Quebec didn't sign.
Good, good. The Quebec government of Libes, that was the premier, and the party Québécois at that time refused to sign the Constitution, this Constitution Act. Okay? So, today they still have, in practice, in force, the two constitutions, this one and this one. Okay? So, Quebec did not sign that Constitution Act. So what happens? And that is related to the Beach Lake Accord and the Charlottetown Agreement. To solve this problem, okay? Because they say, well, what can we do? Okay, yes, so that we can convince Quebec to sign the Constitution and also to convince Quebec to become united to Canada and to this, let's say, so that they abandon these separatist sentiments, okay? So we have the Beach Lake Accord and the Charlottetown Agreement. When?
1987 for the Beach Lake.
Yes, you see after this, okay? Because in the Beach Lake Accords, what was the content? They were going to grant what? More power to the provinces, and there was a clause that said that they would recognize what? Canada? Canada. Quebec as a distinct society. So in that way, they were trying to convince Quebec, okay, not to have this idea of separatism and to embrace them and to convince them to sign this constitution. Okay, but what happened with the Beach Lake Accord? Good, it failed. Yes, they say that it was like an accord because it was not taken to public opinion, to a referendum. It was just an agreement between provincial and federal government. The federal government says yes, some of the provinces say yes, but some provinces say no. Okay? Good. And so that was and then Charlottetown Agreement. What happened?
The provincial government and the federal government approved the agreement, but the referendum.
But there was a referendum, was carried out, yes. This referendum was not only in Canada, it was the whole, it was not only in Quebec, it was the whole of Canada.
Charlottetown. Charlottetown.
It failed.
Charlottetown.
How many people said no?
Está bien así.
Así.
Sí, Charlottetown.
The
Charlottetown.
second referendum, but the difference is that this is in relation to, this was in Quebec, and the question was if they were agreeing with sovereignty or not.
Fail.
And in this
Sí.
one, it was not the question about sovereignty, it was the question about if they accepted the agreement or not.
So the second referendum was actually held due to the Charlottetown agreement.
Sorry?
The second referendum was held due to the Charlottetown agreement.
Well, yeah, they say no, so both agreements failed. And then, sorry, in the middle, something.
The emergency.
After the Beach Lake Accords that failed, what happened as a result?
The bloc Québécois.
The Bloc Québécois emerged in 1991. Yes, 1991. Yes, because they say, well, they're not going to recognize as a distinct society, we're not going to gain more power as a province, we have to fight for our rights at federal level. Not only at provincial level, but at federal level, mainly in parliaments, okay? Representation in parliament. So the Bloc Québécois emerged as a political party at federal level, okay? Then the other agreements that failed. And then in 1995, we have the third referendum in relation to sovereignty in Quebec. It was carried out in Quebec. And how many people said no? 51. So you see, from 60 to 81. So you can see the negative sign or the positive sign. Which is the negative? They say no. Yes. Re-referendum, no. Yes. So that's it. The positive signs?
More people voted for.
Good. So there has been an improvement. So nowadays, with what you have seen with Peña, that the Parti Québécois is having more support, they say, well, maybe if in 1995 we had just 51%, little difference, yes? And now we are increasing in the polls, yes, for support. Maybe if we win the elections in 2026, well, maybe we could change this, okay? Good.
What's the 1977?
The second part of the rule. That is called the, wait, that I have the name here, the Charter of the French Language.
Sorry, I have a question.
Because one is, one is the Official Language Act, and the other one is the Charter of the French Language. One makes a French official in civic administration services and the workplace, and the other one, it makes French the official language of the government and courts of Quebec. French became the normal everyday language of all work, institutions, communication, commerce. But they're like complementary, okay? So you use French as well. Good. You had another question?
No te cobran aranceles por los primeros $400.
That's the part of the Constitution Act?
Tienda mía. Yo a ningún lado, pero en tienda mía. Me estoy fijando. Para cosas de Amazon. Para pero tengo plata en PayPal. La puedo usar. Y la voy a pagar con PayPal. Y te sale más barato. Es de todo. Tiene Argentina, Colombia, Paraguay. Sale. Y el dinero.
Hablamos de la marca esa que tiene el rumbo, el disco, no está tan rica la verdad.
The adoption of the Canadian Charters of Rights and Freedoms in 1982. Yes. And then in 1988, the Canadian Multiculturalism Act. Okay. That makes this the institutionalization of multiculturalism. Okay.
Mira, escúchame. Y si tú dices dólares en PayPal, te sale más barato. Mira, 343. Y si pones, anda ya a la izquierda. Ahí, pone dólares. Pues toca pesos argentinos. Dólares. Y ya está. Más barato. O sea, igual no te recomiendo comprarte un iPhone en... Porque son, o sea, no son los buenos, son los que están abiertos, desbloqueados.
Led to Quebec's claim for for independence in Canada. So these two lines will work with perspective A. Which is perspective A? Regionalism has led to Quebec's claim for independence. These two lines, perspective B, regionalism has not led to Quebec's claim for independence. Is that okay? Yes. And did you write the question so I show you the source? No, wait.
Mira lo que siguen para clase.
Ready?
No.
And this is the source. Right there. Trudeau's argument could be summarized as follows. This quote is also in the Trinidad Universal Class. Nationalism, a modern political phenomenon, although doomed by history, is inferior to theoretical reasons presented by the Federalist Principle. However, to ensure the truth of federalism in pluri-ethnic and multinational states, practical reasons suggest that it may be appropriate to resort to the use of an alternative nationalism in order to create a more compelling allegiance towards the central states. Okay? You will see if you can use this source for perspective A or perspective B. You cannot use it, I think, for both. But we'll see. Yes? 5 minutes? Come on, start. You can get it small groups, pairs.
Claim for independence. Porque no he visto clase.
Me interesa la respuesta. Voy a preguntar a mi amigo.
Para todos.
Mira, feliz cumpleaños. Hoy te beso con lengua. Es una de las que le dije que tiene que irse en ropa.
¿Por?
Yo boludo a mis amigos. Le digo, tiene que irse en ropa, chicos.
Perspective
Como les
A.
pedí dólares en una casa.
Regionalism has led to Quebec's claim for
Soy una amiga
independence.
exótica yo.
What can we say?
¿Ah?
¿De India?
What is regionalism, first of all? What is it?
Ella es extravagante. Los demás que ella es alternativa.
What is regionalism?
Es una persona que jamás han visto.
Okay, first there is a regional consciousness, okay, that you can identify with that region, yes, for different reasons. And that regional consciousness can lead to what? Political expression, okay, which may lead to these feelings and this desire for separatism. In the case of Quebec, which is this regional consciousness that leads to this political expression that leads to this feeling of separatism? What did they feel? That they are a distinct society because they are one of the founding peoples, and because they are a distinct society, they have to be treated differently, and also they feel what? In the social field, in the economic fields.
No.
Not discriminated. What happens in the social field or cultural fields? There weren't the further cultures.
The French identity.
And what is important in relation mainly to Quebec? The
The
language.
language. French.
The language. Very good. Yes, the recognition of the language. Okay. And in relation to that, we have the Languages Act. Okay. Yes, that they say that the Official Languages Act, this bilingualism, did not benefit them. That's why then they passed the other official language acts, which recognize French as the official language. Okay, but there were always problems with the language because they say that they did not benefit them. Okay, in the workplace, in official institutions. Okay, good. And in the economic fields, They don't want to be part of the rest of Canada in economic aspect.
But they thought that there was a bad redistribution among the nations.
Among the provinces, okay? They say Quebec is burdened by economic obligations that belong to the whole country. For example, external debt, they have to be part of that and pay that. Yes, and there is no equitable distribution. Yeah, that is unclear because they say we pay a lot to the federal government, but then we don't receive the same. I was telling the girls, something similar happens here in Argentina, that we always claim that, la distribución federal, ¿cómo se llama? La coparticipación, que nosotros pagamos mucho al gobierno y después subimos. Siempre nos quejamos de que nos subsidiamos todos los porteños, decimos, y nosotros no.
No, 2.000 pesos sale el boleto. Ya sale 200 pesos.
Good. Well, also,
Vale.
yes, that's
Sí,
really
qué duro.
separated. Yes. Good.
Encima que me impusieron la sube de
So that led to this feeling of separatism. And this claim we see where or when emerged. Two political parties, one at provincial level, the Parti Québécois, and one at federal level, the Bloc Québécois, and they have fought for sovereignty. Okay?
I have a question. When we speak of political expressions, that the regional consciousness and the political expression, and then regionalism.
Political expression is these political parties that emerged. Okay, and they
Qué
fight
tufo que
for
hace.
this idea of sovereignty.
But it's kind of by way, by
Le dejas pasar
the
un
voice.
poquito.
Yes, yes.
And we can say that we are both parties, for the health ideas.
Yes, separatist ideas, yes. Good, what else? One, and you have to say, when did they emerge? One in the 60s, as a result of the White Revolution, and the other one in the 90s, as a result of the failure of the Beach Lake Accord. Good, what else? You're just mentioning things, then you have to copy the ideas, okay? What happened with the referendums? The positive signs. There were, you have to say, there were referendums carried out in relation to sovereignty, so that is also something that regionalism led to this claim, that we can see it in the referendums that were carried out, okay? So there was an intention, yes, that was put into practice, and you can see that, remember that I wrote here, then one was 60% and the other one? 51. So it seems that there has been an improvement, okay? An increase in this separatist sentiment over 15 years, okay? And maybe it can be as a result of the failure of the two agreements or accords. You can say, well, this failed, and we couldn't be recognized as a distinct society. We couldn't be granted more power at provincial level. That were the aims of the accords, the agreement. Okay, good. And we could also mention the latest political landscape today in 2025. What can we say that Eugenia mentioned?
Re-emerge.
Good, because at provincial level in Quebec, the last election was in 2022. And since 2022 to 2025, okay, because in 2022 the elections, who won at provincial level?
The Coalition Avenir.
Coalition Avenir Quebec. And I think that then there is another party here, and then I think there is the third or the fourth here is Parti Québécois. No, por si el tercero o el cuarto. And I would say, the Parti Québécois, the article, the Parti Québécois has led in polls for nearly 2 years, the last 2 years, that is 2024, 2025. A June 2025 poll indicated that 56% of Quebecers aged 18 to 34, so young generation, support sovereignty. If the Parti Québécois wins the 2026 provincial election, Plamondon, that is the new leader, has pledged to hold a referendum on Quebec's independence. So it's like a campaign promise, let's say. The governing coalition Avenir Quebec, that is the one in government, has experienced a decline in popularity due to issues like corruption and dissatisfaction with primarily gold. In contrast, the Quebec Liberals have revitalized under new leader Rodriguez, potentially being a challenge to the Parti Québécois. So here we have the Liberals in between. As a second, the Liberals and the Conservatives also. Yes? They gain more votes than the Parti Québécois. So, it seems that the Parti Québécois is rising in the polls. Okay? Good. So you can mention that also in perspective A. Perspective B. What can we say? It has not led to separatism. Good, the failures of the referendum. Very good. So it has not led to separatism because we can see it in the failure of the referendum. Very good. What else? Also in the failure of what? Of the agreement. Okay. Listen, people. If you mention the referendum as something positive, then you cannot mention it as something negative. The same happens with the agreement. You could mention it in one or the other. Good.
Antes del parcial.
La semana de...
Nowadays, practice card, the doctor card, and
La mesa creo que es la semana que viene.
Good. So, limited support in the referendum. That was one. Okay? Limited popular support for separatism in the referendum. Today, sovereignty, or for the last year, sovereignty was no longer a political priority. Because remember that the last, and also here, the previous years, it was the coalition Avenir Quebec, the one in government. Okay? Remember the chart that Diana showed? Diana. Okay, yes? And apart from that, today, we have the coalition Avenir Quebec in power, and at federal level, who do we have? The Liberals. The Liberals have 169 seats in parliament. Then we have the Conservatives with 144. And the Bloc Québécois has just 22 seats in parliament. You see? So we don't know what will happen next year. So the good side perspective, let's say, you mentioned that the Bloc Québécois is rising in the polls and the coalition of Avenir Quebec is losing support. But if you see it in perspective, you see, well, for the last years, these two political parties did not have support in government or was not in power in government in Quebec and in the federal government. Do you see it? Good. What else? You mentioned the referendum and the source. Trudeau's argument could be summarized as follows. So this is Trudeau. Who is Trudeau? Or who is Trudeau? The Prime Minister of Canada until this year, March. He is which party? He was succeeded by Mark
McCartney or
El video que estamos haciendo. Su una fuente.
McCartney.
Poco a poco.
McCartney.
Lo van a extender.
And he is also from the Labour Party. So he was succeeded by a person from the same party. Okay? But he lost popularity to Law. That's why he resigned.
En cambio, si siguen
Trudeau's
abriendo la
argument
Segunda
could be
Guerra,
summarized as
en
follows.
2023.
Nationalism, a potent political phenomenon, although doomed by history, is inferior to the theoretical reason represented by federalist
Supuestamente en
principles.
Bahía Blanca, tipo en Cultura,
Ahí.
tipo, podés empezar tranquila, elegir el día, como que tiene tiempo. Acá es tipo,
What does nationalism refer to? To Quebec nationalism. This feeling of Quebecers that they feel as a nation that want to get independence.
a mí chiquita el broche.
Separatist sentiments. Okay? That's why it says a potent political phenomenon, because it was a potent political phenomenon throughout history. Although duped by history. Why? Faith, okay, throughout history. Yes?
Ahorita con lo que tengo que poner.
However, to ensure the truth of federalism, so he proposes what? As part of his
Me dice con lo que tengo que
nationalism
poner.
at
Capítulo.
federal level, federalism. What is that?
No, para mí.
He was a federal leader. He defended a what? United Canada, yes, that allowed
Nada, sí,
provinces
obvio, mira.
certain autonomy in certain aspects, yes, with these regional differences, yes, he acknowledges that there are regional differences and that they have certain autonomy, but within a national unity and without threatening this national unity, okay? So, he recognizes this diversity, remember that he promoted with policy multiculturalism, the recognition of diversity, yes, of the rights, okay, cultural recognition, but together with the promotion of national unity and national symbols to keep Canada united. For example, he promoted the Maple Leaf flag, the O Canada anthem throughout Canada. So promoting this feeling of a federalist nation, okay? And his campaigns for federalism may have led to the defeat of for example, of the referendum, okay? Yes, is that clear? So he says, to ensure the truth of federalism in pluriethnic and multinational states, practical reasons suggest that it may be appropriate to resort to the use of an alternative nationalism. So he proposes this alternative nationalism, this federalist idea. Okay, then you have it. Look in one of the slides in the virtual classroom, you have the two stances divided like this: federalism and federalism. Okay. In order to create a more compelling allegiance towards the central state. Okay, is that clear? So in this case, regionalism does not lead to Quebec's independence because he favors this, acknowledging Quebec's regionalism, let's say, or regional diversity, yes, and granting certain autonomy, but within national unity. Okay? The source? In perspective B? That regionalism has not led to Quebec independence because regionalism is understand in this sense is acknowledging regional diversity but within national unity. Okay? Yes, and he pushed for this and promoted this. And this
Están hablando de mí.
has led to the failure of the referendum, for example.
La vamos a ver a alguien después de caer. No sé la banda que lo ve. Yo nunca la encontré en mi información. Ya la tarde.
Eso después se plasma.
Solo 2 días.
¿Qué?
Yo vengo 2 días.
Dice que no.
A la Marti
Que lo
tampoco.
convenció de que no. Claro.
¿Qué?
Okay. Okay. Anything else that you have thought about?
Con mi psicóloga.
Ah, ¿también? Yes. You have it in the virtual classroom. Yes.
Tengo una pregunta que dice, ¿cómo
That when regional consciousness, yes, please,
Basta de discriminación digital.
Fuerzas tiene que ir.
¿A dónde?
and regions start
No, nena.
or certain